What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. The main body of a Pokemon game is obviously the focus that most anyone would use in determining if they're going to buy it. But what happens when you're done? There's no reason to play the game once you've beaten the story, right? Well, that's where the post-game comes in, giving you content to partake in once the credits have already rolled. Now, these post-game activities vary wildly, so let's go through and rank all of the mainline entries from worst to best, and see how the post-games can make or break the overall experience. So, taking the bottom spot from the last time loser, number 18 is the post-game for Red and Blue. And I don't think this is any surprise. I mean, to be fair, they were probably more interested in making sure the meat of the game was fun to play than preserving that player base, but Kanto has got to be the most sparse region once you've beaten the game, especially back in Gen 1. After you beat the Elite Four, you can challenge the Elite Four again. Yeah, that's pretty much it, other than Cerulean Cave opening up to capture Mewtwo, which, for the time, was pretty sweet, I'll give him that, but it kind of got old by Yellow version, which didn't really change much of anything. And there's the other legends that you can catch if you didn't, and completing the decks, but that's stuff that's common to all games, like competitive battling is, so it's not exactly special, leaving the earliest games to predictably fall short in this quite modern expectation. However, age is not an excuse for number 17, because we now have Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Maybe it's no surprise that these games are here given their inspiration, but the fact that they were 20 years and 5 console generations later didn't really help their post-game at all. You can do the same re-challenging of the Elite Four and catching Mewtwo, which is clearly visually stunning, but not much different other than the battle then throwing balls mechanic. And hey, I will give them the meetups for Red, Blue, and Green, that was cool, and all of the Master Trainers being there is new, but that can also be a bit of a chore to raise up every Pokemon enough to beat them all. I mean, you can actually shiny hunt this time, so I guess that's something, but they really should have been able to scrounge up more than just copying their post-game off of the very first attempt. But just like last time, Kanto will get another shot at this list eventually. Now for number 16, I will be putting Sword and Shield. This may shock some people, but obviously I am not including the DLC as post-game content. Sure, most players that picked it up had already completed the game months before, but it is not required to beat the game to explore these areas. Seriously, if you've not replayed it, go start a new file and you can go to the Isle of Armor before the first gym. Maybe you would argue that the Crown Tundra is more post-game, but that would really only cut off the surfing parts, which does house the new legends, so I'll give you that, but you can still catch all of the old ones in the Dynamax Adventures right away. So that just leaves Galar with a tournament that you can try multiple times, which is pretty neat, and a battle tower like most regions. But what saves it the tiniest bit is the little extra story that's squeezed out with the weird-haired brothers and the history of the mascot legendaries. And it is quite strange to catch a Pokemon that's on the box in technically the post-game, but some story is better than none, like in Kanto, even though, once again, being a modern game makes the overall lack of content dreadful. But don't worry, if you think the DLC should count, I'll shout it out whenever I think we get there on the list. So that'll then take us to number 15, which goes to X and Y. Yeah, they couldn't have gotten much further than fourth from the bottom, could they? Lack of a post-game was a huge criticism for the Gen 6 games, and a major reason that everyone was so disappointed that there was no follow-up. But what did we actually get? Well, you can once again catch Mewtwo and the legendary birds, Deja Vu, but there's also Zygarde that can be caught as well, so that's a bit more. Kalos also let us go to a new city that houses the Battle Maison for battling, as well as the Friend Safari for catching. The post-game also adds the Looker missions in Lumio City. Now, arguably, the Galar post-game is more important, but it's basically a continuation of the main story, whereas Looker and Kalos feels more like its own thing, with the introduction of a brand new problem and focus on a new character. So it's not the worst out there, but there's still not a whole lot to enjoy. Number 14 won't take us too far with the original Sun and Moon. I was honestly kind of shocked because I remember it being more expansive than it actually seems to be. But once you become Alola's first champion, you can head on over to the Battle Tree, which is their natural spin on the usual combat gauntlet, with a much more effective appearance by Red and Blue since we didn't expect them here. But more importantly, there are the Ultra Beast missions. Once again, Looker sends you out to go track down these new captures, so any extra story that will also expand my decks is much appreciated, even if some of them are version exclusive. And that's on top of the other legends that you can catch like the Tapus or Necrozma. So it is pretty decent, if a little bit predictable by the time of Gen 7, but at the very least you can defend your title from other characters, so that's pretty cool. The number 13 spot will go to Ruby and Sapphire. This is really where the post-game sort of solidified around a few central ideas, since Hoenn had the Battle Tower offered up in the regular game as a way to practice battling once you're done with the main experience. But this is also where they offered up more legends than just the ones on the box and one other trio. I mean, they did that too, but the reason that this is above Sun and Moon is because these legends provide exploration without much heavy prompting. So you can climb Sky Pillar or dive into the depths to unlock the Regis all on your own. These Gen 3 games also have a couple of extras like the final level of the Trick House and Master Contests and such, but not much beyond that other than the regular catching them all. So we gotta respect what Ruby and Sapphire did for the series, but they are relatively tame by comparison. Number 12, I'm kind of surprised, will go to Scarlet and Violet. Again, we're not really counting the DLC, and that's not just because they haven't come out yet. So in the standard form of the game, without any upgrades, you can go on to rematch the gym leaders, so that's pretty cool, but you can only do it once for some reason. However, then you can do the Ace Academy tournament as many times as you want, even though no gym leaders appear there. I'm not sure why they're so busy all of a sudden. But the post-game also unlocks higher level raid battles if that's your thing, and the ability to capture all of the Paradox Pokémon. Maybe you don't value those as highly as legendary Pokémon, which is fair, but as far as a modern Pokémon game finally giving us something to do in the post-game, Paldea comes out looking just a bit better by sprinkling in the tiniest bit of flair. Now, the number 11 spot I will be giving to Fire Red and Leaf Green. See, this is way higher than those other Kanto options. Honestly, these games might have been a big question mark when they first came out, but they pretty well sold the fact that these were different enough by adding in a whole new section of the Sevi Islands. I may not personally love everything about those islands, but I cannot deny that this opens up the game so much more with areas that have never been explored before or since, largely confined to the post-game. These also hold new story elements with Team Rocket, and even a mission that allows you to trade with the Hoenn games, and even opening up new Pokémon that can't be caught anywhere else in the region, on top of adding new legends that were not in Kanto either, while still providing all of the old ones. So apparently the first ever remakes really went in hard on trying to add value. Starting out the top 10 will be Black and White. Following the trend, you'll see that I quite enjoy new areas to explore and new stories, and the first Unova games gave us both. Once again, Looker comes by to ask for our help, this time rounding up the 7 sages of Team Plasma, so that's pretty cool. But the post-game also opens up routes 11 through 18, save for 16, as well as 3 new towns with either Black City or White Forest. Just walking through all of that would be so fun, but all of the little side areas and legends to catch with that makes it hard to pass up. There's also the Battle Subway, which I didn't do much personally, but you gotta have those combat centers. So now I'm just kind of feeling bad that I haven't touched my white version in so long, because apparently I need to go back and try some things. Number 9 will be Emerald version. This is like the original Hoenn games in that it provides those cool extra legends, but does focus more on Rayquaza, which is fine. But Emerald also brought in new locations, such as the Marine Cave, Terra Cave, Desert Underpass, and the Magma Hideout now on the side of Mount Chimney. But of course, the most notable location would be the Battle Frontier, which I'm sure is the main reason that people will say this game should be much higher, but I gotta be honest, I don't get the hype. I never sunk hundreds of hours into it because if I'm going to battle that much, I would rather actually gain experience or at least fill out my Pokédex instead of just seeing a button change colors if I do it enough. This might be the most biased entry on the list, but personally I've just never heard a satisfactory reason for why the Emerald Battle Frontier is substantially so much better than any other that's come after it. The number 8 spot will go to Diamond and Pearl, and they really kicked it up a notch by basically having half a new region up in the northeast, with the fight, survival, and resort areas to explore that also houses the Battle Tower and Stark Mountain where Heatran lives. But speaking of, there are plenty of legendary Pokémon to catch in Sinnoh all across the region, and actually too many of them since some of them were from events only. But the post-game also allows you to access Pal Park as well to bring up all of the old Pokémon from past games, and honestly I would lump Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in with the originals because the biggest change seems to be finding more legends in Ramanos Park instead, so those Sinnoh games do a pretty good job of letting you stick around long after the end credits have rolled. But on par with that is number 7, Legends Arceus. Technically the same region, but without the battle zone up at the top, you would think that would make it worse, but Hisui lets you go around to collect even more legends than the base Sinnoh games, previously event Pokémon, and sure, every Pokémon game has completing the dex as a post-game marker, but here there's actual story to go with it. And the gameplay makes it so much fun to fill out all of the little check marks in that notebook. And even then, you have dozens of other requests that will lead to the side missions for you, not to mention the Paths of Solitude and Tenacity in the battle area. And of course the Daybreak DLC, if you count that. So even a game without external connection is in a pretty impressive position for keeping players hooked. Also, this is probably where I would rank Sword and Shield if the DLC counted as full post-game. But to cap it off, number 6 will be Pokémon Platinum. This third version obviously shares many aspects with Diamond and Pearl, including the new battle area to explore up north, but Platinum goes the extra mile by including the Battle Frontier. Yes, I know that it's not the same as Emeralds, and is therefore agreed upon as inferior somehow, but as I said, it's all the same to me, so when last gen's best selling point for a post-game is put in with all of the legendaries to catch, on top of new ones that weren't there the first time in Gen 4, it makes it shine as one of the most involved post-games that you could want. Not to mention that this is one of the only games that gives you your own house to stay in that you can decorate however you want like it was a secret base or something. Now, for the top 5, I'm going to put Gold and Silver first. I know people will say that they should be much higher, and they do have a point. We know the deal. After you beat the Pokemon League, you can go on a boat to Vermilion City, and the entire Kanto region opens up for you to explore. This is great on its own, basically doubling the size of the game, but it's also not exactly like we knew it. Time has passed and we get to see things differently, like fixing the power plant, or Janine being promoted to replace her dad. And then of course there is the epic battle with Red at the top of Mount Silver, effectively beating yourself from last time. And I would put Crystal here in this same boat, but catching the other version's legendary is a feat that has yet to be replicated effectively in any of the subsequent generations, both of them being available in either version. Again, maybe you think this easily overtakes the remaining options, but that's just because you haven't heard me talk about them yet. Cause see, for number 4, I'm gonna put Black and White 2. And while they don't include an entire new region, they do offer up quite a bit of real estate in the post-game. Not only do they have all of the goodies from the original Unova games like the subway, but they threw in new battle facilities in the Black Tower or the White Tree Hollow, which if you beat you'll get a free shiny, a heaping helping of legendary Pokemon from the past, and one of the coolest post-game activities ever, the Pokemon World Tournament. They've touched this idea elsewhere, but rarely pulled it off as well as this, actually getting all of the old gym leaders from the past games. It might be outdated now, sure, but during Gen 5, this was the original everyone is here moment. Also, this is the first Pokemon game with a challenge mode after you've beaten the game, meaning that you could replay the whole thing on a higher difficulty, which people have been wanting forever, and I have no clue why they dropped it so quickly, but that, and the ability to pass it on to your friends, pretty successfully puts these sequels above Gen 2 for me. So, topping that at number 3, I would put Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So we've got the battle tree and all that same stuff, but on top of an altered story, the Ultra games gave us the ability to actually experience travel in the Ultra wormholes, and they will actually lead to more than one spot, allowing us to capture so many legendary Pokemon, and the Ultra Beasts as well. Which is pretty standard by now, but these wormholes are even better because you can get regular Pokemon that you can't find anywhere else in Alola, and they are much more likely to be shiny. I cannot tell you how many hours I spent trying to shiny hunt and the great amount of success that I had. That's all pretty sweet, but Alola's second outing also provided a totally new epilogue with Team Rainbow Rocket. This is like the World Tournament, but for the evil teams, bringing back all of the past leaders from worlds where their plans actually worked. They took over the world, and now they're here for yours as well. What an amazing idea! The only disappointment was that I could only play through it once. So it may have come out a little too soon after the originals, but if you could only play one Gen 7 game, I would definitely suggest picking up an Ultra version, since it's far more bang for your buck. The penultimate number 2 I would give to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. These games may not have the most prestigious reputation, but looking back it holds up incredibly well. Being remakes, they do have the same options as the original Ruby and Sapphire, and sure, they didn't have a battle frontier, but neither did the first ones, so that's okay. The reason Oros lands here is that to me it has by far the best legendary collection method in the entire Pokémon series, with the soaring mechanic. This only opens up in the post-game and allows you to travel the skies of the Hoenn region, gathering up the legends from all sorts of past games, and tons of other spots that can only be accessed this way, like Mirage Islands and more. Soaring is just so much fun! But these games didn't completely ignore Emerald because they included the Delta episode. This addendum to the story is so interesting, with a shift in focus to a new character and Mega Evolution, resulting in a huge lore dump about ancient dragons and confirming parallel universes in the Pokémon world, while giving us the absurdly powerful Mega Rayquaza, and for the first time gifting us a mythical to be caught in-game by allowing Deoxys to be the cherry on top. Maybe you think this pales in comparison, but just simple additions like DexNav, which allows you to capture all sorts of past Pokémon, makes backtracking an enjoyable necessity. And it is complemented by re-challenging trainers on every single route in the game. To me, Oros just makes the best possible use of the map that they already had from the start by filling out the entire thing in land, sea, and sky to the brim once the post-game starts, making it one of the most entertaining and efficient post-games to play through. But of course, number 1 is no surprise, Heart Gold and Soul Silver have to be the ultimate post-game experience in the Pokémon series. As we said before, Johto giving us an entire second region to travel through is a wonderful revelation that at minimum doubles our journey, but I would say far more than that this time around. These remakes included more legendaries that could be found within the Johto region side, and expanded the map even further to include a brand new safari zone that you can decorate. On top of getting the gold and silver mascots in either version, you can also collect the Legends of Hoenn, and there's a side quest with Suicune including certain aspects of Crystal that you cannot complete until you reach Cerulean City. And I know the Sinnoh Ruins were an event, but it's still worth a mention, as is the incredible Celebi event where you actually travel through time back to the proceedings of the main game and personally stop Giovanni from going back to meet Team Rocket. And we do have to mention that Heart Gold and Soul Silver shared in the same battle frontier that Platinum had. So if that's your favorite thing to do, then it's here as well. But there's also the Poké-Athlon to occupy your time, or if you want, you can just go around collecting all of the gym leaders' phone numbers and then rematching them every day once you've collected them all. And when you go to beat Red at the end once again, Professor Oak can give you a second starter to pick from, getting one of the classic Kanto choices as a reward for all your hard work. There are tons of different ways that people like to spend their post-game. Exploration, battling, shiny hunting, training Pokemon up to high levels, but Heart Gold and Soul Silver have some of each one of them for everybody. No matter what you like to do, these games have what you're looking for, and all the while your Pokemon follow behind your every step. So those are how I would classify each of the Pokemon post-games. Which post-game in Pokemon is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!